No one in the company knew the billionaire CEO was coming back that day. She had been away for months, traveling overseas for high-level business deals. But when she quietly walked into the building that evening, she stopped in her tracks. What she saw the janitor doing made her freeze, because it was something she never imagined would happen inside her own company. She had built the company from scratch, starting with nothing but a small loan and an idea. Over the years, it grew into a multi-billion-dollar empire. Her life became a constant blur of meetings, boardrooms, and private jets. But success had its price. She hardly had time to personally connect with the hundreds of employees working under her roof. She trusted her managers to handle day-to-day matters, including staff and roles she rarely noticed, like the janitors who kept the massive headquarters spotless. That day had started as another busy schedule overseas. She was in the middle of a conference in another country when a deal unexpectedly closed ahead of time. Instead of announcing her return, she decided to come back quietly. She wanted to walk into her office without fanfare, without anyone preparing for her arrival. Her chauffeur dropped her off at the private parking area. She used her executive key card to enter the building through the side entrance, an area usually deserted in the evening. The corridors were silent. Most employees had already left for the day. As she made her way toward her office, she noticed light spilling from one of the break rooms. Curious, she slowed down. Inside, she saw the janitor, an older man she barely recognized. He was on his knees, not cleaning, but arranging something on the floor. At first, she thought it was just cleaning supplies, but then she saw what it really was, and her steps halted. The janitor was carefully packing leftover food into neat containers. Not just scraps, perfectly untouched meals from the executive dining area. Beside him was a large cloth bag filled with bottles of water, fresh fruit, and sandwiches. She realized he wasn't doing this for himself. There was too much food for one person. For a moment, she simply stood there, unnoticed, watching. Every movement he made was deliberate, almost gentle, as if the food was precious. He checked expiration dates, made sure nothing was spoiled, and placed each item in the bag with care. Finally, she stepped closer and spoke his name. The man looked up, startled. When he saw who it was, his eyes widened. He immediately stood up, almost dropping the container in his hands. I didn't know you were here," he stammered. She asked him what he was doing. His answer was quiet at first, as though he feared he might be in trouble. He explained that every evening, after the executives had finished their meals, there was always food left behind, fresh, high-quality food that would normally be thrown away. He couldn't bear to see it go to waste. So, without telling anyone, he had been collecting it, packing it carefully, and taking it to a small homeless shelter on the edge of the city. He admitted he had been doing this for months. No one had noticed, and he never expected anyone to. He didn't do it for recognition. He did it because he knew what hunger felt like. Before he got the janitor job, he had been unemployed for years. There were nights when he had gone to bed without a meal, and days when he had relied on strangers' kindness just to survive. Her mind was still processing his words. In her world, food waste was something handled by catering staff and contracts. She had never stopped to think about what happened to the untouched meals after business hours. And here was one man, someone she hardly knew, quietly turning that waste into hope for people who had nothing. She asked him why he never mentioned it to management. He smiled faintly and said, "Ma'am, I'm just a janitor. People don't usually ask me what I think we should do with leftovers." Something about the way he said it struck her deeply. This man wasn't just doing a kind act, he was doing it without expecting praise, policy changes, or even a thank you. He had found a way to make a difference with what he had, access to a building, and a willingness to carry a heavy bag every night to people in need. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. Billionaires were used to making headlines for big donations, huge charity events, or massive foundations. But here was a single person doing something quietly, consistently, and with a genuine heart, without any budget, committee, or public attention. The janitor looked uneasy, as if waiting for her to reprimand him for taking company property. Instead, she asked him how many people the food usually helped. He told her the shelter fed about 30 to 40 people each night, and the leftovers from the executive floor often provided enough for half their evening meals. She realized that, Without intending to, her company had been helping feed dozens of people, not because of any official program, but because one man decided to act. When she asked about his routine, he described how he stayed behind after his shift, cleaned up the dining area, and carefully set aside anything still fresh. He'd then make the trip to the shelter before heading home. Sometimes he walked there when the bus service was slow. Other times he used his old bicycle, balancing the bag on the handlebars. He never told the shelter staff where the food came from. "It's not about me," he said. "It's about making sure no one goes to bed hungry if I can help it." She found herself asking more questions, not out of suspicion, but out of genuine curiosity. The more he spoke, the more she realized how much he cared about the people he was helping. He even remembered some of their names and stories: an elderly woman who used to be a teacher, a young man trying to get off the streets after losing his job, a single mother with 2 children who never complained even when she ate less so her kids could have more. The billionaire CEO felt an unexpected heaviness in her chest. In all her business decisions, she had been focused on expansion, profits, and global impact. Yet here, under her own roof, was an opportunity to make a difference that was both immediate and personal, and she had missed it until now. She told him she wanted to see the shelter for herself. His eyes widened again, but this time with surprise rather than fear. That night, she accompanied him to the small building at the edge of the city. When they arrived, she saw the truth for herself: dozens of people waiting patiently, their faces lighting up as the janitor arrived. They greeted him warmly, some even hugging him. He introduced her only as someone from the company. She stayed in the background, watching him distribute the food with the same care she had seen earlier. The visit stayed with her long after she returned home. The next day, she called an emergency meeting with her senior staff, not to scold, but to propose something new. She wanted the company to partner officially with local shelters, ensuring that leftover food was collected daily, stored properly, and delivered to those who needed it most. But she insisted on one thing: the janitor who had started it all would lead the initiative. He knew the process, he knew the people, and most importantly, he had the heart for it. In the weeks that followed, the program grew beyond her expectations. Other companies in the area heard about it and joined in. What had once been one man's quiet act of kindness became a network feeding hundreds of people every night. And through it all, the janitor remained humble. He still cleaned the floors, emptied trash cans, and worked his shifts as before. But now, everyone in the building knew his name, and more importantly, his story. For the billionaire CEO, that unplanned evening changed something in her. It reminded her that leadership wasn't just about boardroom decisions and profit margins. Sometimes, it was about noticing the small acts happening right in front of you and having the courage to support them. She often thought back to that moment when she first walked in and saw him packing food. The shock she felt had nothing to do with the act itself. It was the realization that in her own building, a quiet hero had been working all along unseen. And she knew she would never look at the word janitor the same way again.